so what is the next project? The next project is, of course, a program that is financed by the European Commission in the program of Erasmus Plus Sport Collaborative Partnership. This is the call that we participate in, and we got the grant because this is a really important activities, but we couldn't know how important it will get in 2020 with all that has happened. It's not my role to speak about the COVID-19 situation, but of course it comes to mind that proximity sport can be really a vehicle of bringing people again in physical activity. So what we want to do is to share the experiences that we already implemented at the national level with WISP of neighborhood sport. With neighborhood sport, we speak about proximity sport. So sport that is implemented in the neighborhood, in the condominiums, in close proximity with the people. So we don't ask the people to come to do sports and physical activities, but we go to them for them to implement these activities. What are our objectives? So of course is to encourage the participation in sport and physical activities, because we are grassroots sports associations, and this is our main goal, I think, that we share all together. Mitigation of isolation and loneliness among the elderly. So we know that when we reach a certain age and we retire, and we tend to isolate ourselves a little bit more. What we want to do is to contrast this phenomenon through physical activities. So this is quite important because the health of our elderly is our health. So this is one of the points that we want to reach. Foster the rediscovery and use of the condominium and public spaces for the practice of grassroots sport. So what we want to do is to bring the people to rediscover where they live as a place that can be exploited at their favor, to not only to implement physical activities, but also to form bonds and relationships. And this brings me to the next objective, that is increase social well-being, relationship and physical well-being. So as we all know, sport is a great vehicle of values and skills. So of course, relational and personal skills. So what we want to do with the next project is bring this to a neighborhood and bring this neighborhood together. So create relationships and form bonds, a safety net that people can live in, and all of this through sport, because we believe sport is a really powerful vehicle of these things. Increase in the levels of inclusion of neighborhood from foreign origins. So of course, we are living in a really multicultural age, but there are still some differences between us. What we want to do is to embrace our differences and join all together through the implementation of physical activities, because sport is also a vehicle of contrasting the inequalities. So these are the main objectives of neighborhood sport as a methodology. We went through what we did. So what were the activities of the next project? We went through a research phase. All the partners participated in. The research phase was really long and really thorough. We researched our national contexts and already implemented best practices. This research phase brought to us really important documents that you will have access to after this capacity building program, which is the toolkit, the Neighborhood Sport Toolkit, which contains all the research that we did until now. So you will have an idea of your national context, your national legislation regarding the proximity sport, and good practice already implemented you can take inspiration from. So this is a really important document. After that, we will have, of course, the capacity building program that we're having right now, but as an anticipation, I will tell you that it will be in 2 parts, and we are trying to implement the second part online, but this is a topic for another time. The general objective of this training is to provide you, that are the professionals, the sport instructors, we are the managers, we won't implement the activities firsthand, but you will be the most important part of the next project, because you will go test the methodology yourself. So you will be pioneers of a new methodology. So what we want to do with this capacity building program is to prepare you and to give you the basis of knowledge. Of course, we can't teach you everything because experience is the best teacher, but we will try to transmit to you all the messages that we can. The pilot test, of course, we will go deeper in the pilot test in a couple sessions, but the pilot test will be the true implementation of the next project, because it will be the time where we test the methodology firsthand. So you will go to your neighborhood, implement physical activities, of course, at your own pace and respecting your different contexts, but we will test the efficacy of proximity sport as a methodology. So we will have, of course, thanks to the University of Cassino and Simone, of course, we will have some surveys and evaluation tools that we will use to see if the proximity sport methodology can be improved, what will be the strengths and what will be the weaknesses of the methodology, and this will be really important. That brings us to the next and final step of the implementation phase. That will be the handbook. The handbook will contain, and it will be only thanks to you, will contain the guidelines of the next sport methodology. So we will have a manual that we will be able to transfer to other organizations at European level, with a methodology that will be transferable and replicable to other contexts. So this will be really important. It will be a really important output to draft, because it will be the final effort of the next sports project. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is the social component of the neighborhood sport project. Of course, I don't have to explain to you the social component of sport, because we all work in grassroots sport, and we know that our main focus is not the competition, is not the awards and results, but is what we can, how we can develop ourselves and other people through sport. So this is a really important component. The next project aims to exploit the social component already present in sport that we all know about, to make neighborhoods real communities. So what we see in the movies, what we see in the TV shows, neighborhood all together, neighbors that have parties together and are friends with each other, and if you need something, I will give it to you, and if I need something, you will give it to me. This is what we want to help develop with the next sport. So as we know, the pyramid of needs, of basic needs, gives love and belonging and safety as main needs for the development of an individual. So encouraging people. So what we want to do with the next sports project is to encourage people to live in a group, to feel part of a certain social context. We don't want to have people who are islands themselves. We want people who can be connected to each other, because we want to fulfill one of the primary needs of each individual, which is belonging and safety. So there's no doubt that sport is a vehicle for inclusion, aggregation, aggregation, and participation with a fundamental social role, which allows the development of skills and abilities essential for balance. So think about team sports, think about fitness group, the relationship that comes to be created, the skills that comes to be created. So mediation, collaboration, respect. This is all values that can be transmitted through sport, and we want to transmit through the Next Sport project. Whether it's for children, teenagers, adults, or the elderly, it represents a school of life which never stops teaching new rules. This is really true. Being with the others, sharing, contributing to the achievement of difficult, challenging, but not impossible goals. So all together, the neighborhood can contribute to create a safety net and a good place to live. Let's say it like this. The common sense of belongings and participation are powerful tools which little by little can bring about the change that always been identified in sport, favoring greater economic and social cohesion. This is also one of the main components that we want to achieve in the Next Sport project, is the social cohesion. So people coming together. Less represented group, people with disabilities or who come from disadvantaged backgrounds, sport, regardless of age, religion, and social origin, has a great aggregative value and promotes physical and social well-being, of course. So what I did in this moment is to tell you what are the objectives that we would like to achieve during the Next Sport project, and which you will be the main actors of this change.
L'obiettivo principale è il contrasto alla sedentarietà, cercando di intercettare i cittadini che non svolgono attività fisica portandogliela sotto casa. Ovviamente questo ha un risvolto principalmente sullo stato di salute e di benessere delle persone, ma anche un risvolto sociale di aggregazione, di costruzione di relazioni e di supporto alle persone più fragili a rischio di esclusione, che attraverso l'attività fisica rimangono partecipativi e attivi all'interno del contesto di comunità.
Un po' stiamo riscoprendo i sapori di quando eravamo bambini, quando ancora le persone si parlavano. Adesso siamo un condominio con le porte aperte. Che cosa è cambiato? È cambiato che noi speriamo di essere un esempio esportabile, da prima con i nostri bambini, che anche loro possano essere un seme che germoglia e che possa essere un esempio esportabile non solo per il nostro condominio ma anche per gli altri.
chiaro che all'interno di una sala condominiale lo spazio è più piccolo, è dotato magari di meno attrezzature come possono essere i canestri, che magari spesso vengono utilizzati, oppure spalliere. Tuttavia diciamo che entrambe le cose non sono limitanti nello svolgere l'attività, in quanto la si struttura semplicemente diversamente. Quindi la si struttura in base allo spazio che si ha, e per il resto si è cercato, ed è quello che abbiamo fatto, comprato, preso attrezzature in modo da svolgere comunque l'attività completa lo stesso, quindi tappetini, bande elastiche, bastoni, palle e bottigliette che vengono utilizzate come pesetti. Perciò diciamo che anche se c'è una differenza, l'attività è completa in entrambe le situazioni, è diversa ma è completa in entrambe le situazioni, sia in una palestra che in una sala condominiale. Sembra comunque di entrare in un ambiente familiare, in quanto sei tu che vai a casa delle persone, perché è una loro sala, è una sala del loro condominio, quindi anche il rapporto è quasi strettamente familiare. Infatti spesso le persone scendono a fare attività in pantofole, perché per loro è come passare da una stanza ad un'altra, e questo è bello perché le difficoltà che spesso riscontrano nell'andare a fare l'attività nelle palestre e che le persone si giustificano nel non venire magari tante volte o nel non fare l'attività dicendo che sono stanchi dal lavoro, non hanno voglia di rimettersi nel traffico, non hanno voglia di preparare una borsa ed andare. Qui semplicemente la gente scende le scale, viene a fare lo sport, viene a fare l'attività, ed è un po' come appunto lo sport che viene a casa tua. Di conseguenza c'è meno assenteismo e soprattutto si riesce a coinvolgere maggiormente le persone nell'attività motoria.
Nel periodo estivo ci si incontra con tutti i condomini e le persone a fare 4 chiacchiere prima di cena. Poi quando scatta l'orario delle 6 spariscono tutti e non ci si incontra più. L'idea qual è stata? Quella di trovarci anche dopo cena. Dopo cena cosa voleva dire? Incontrarci per fare 2 chiacchiere e cercare di fare delle cose. La cosa che ci è venuta meglio è stato il fatto di pensare di fare ginnastica. Tutti gli anni noi poniamo la questione di dire ci serve sempre lo stesso insegnante, perché si crea un rapporto di stima, di fiducia, e poi ha le competenze per risolvere problemi che possono nascere tra rapporti tra uno lo voglio alto, uno lo vuole basso, uno vuole forte, uno vuole piano.
Mi piace moltissimo, e a maggior ragione la ginnastica dolce, perché non sono obbligata a dover fare per forza dei movimenti precisi. Ho notato molti benefici. Intanto prima non mi muovevo per niente e quindi non riuscivo neanche a reagire dopo la malattia. Di conseguenza, venendo qui a fare ginnastica, intanto con le ossa, i muscoli, le gambe, le braccia sono più agile, però nel frattempo mi è anche cambiato molto l'umore. Infatti sono sempre allegra, entusiasta, e in più ho coinvolto anche mio marito, che venendo insieme siamo contentissimi. Non vediamo l'ora di venire a ginnastica.
Is to try to enter in the session that is helping us to understand what kind of activities we have been developing in our experience. And I would like to tell you that we will have in this session the chance to hear a very interesting contribution from one of our colleagues that is called Michele Di Gioia. He is the responsible for common goods and a lot of other things in our association, and he speaks English, fortunately, and so he will give a contribution to this session. What I would like to give you is just few elements that are in common with the examples we would talk about. Probably this is probably the best solution, because we need to know what kind of elements in common they have, because obviously we have different contexts, different dimensions of the towns we are talking about. It is about Sassari in Sardinia, Reggio Emilia in the center-north part of Italy in Emilia-Romagna region, and Florence, that is probably the most known everywhere in the world. But these three examples give us an idea of what kind of thing we have in mind and what we need to be able to develop this kind of methodology. And if we think about what is the use of the day today, as Francesca told you, in the end of the day, we will have the chance to try to invent, each of you, each group from the different countries will invent an activity that could be developed in the context, in your local context. So considering all the elements that are needed to be able to create such a methodology test. What I would like to tell you is that just unfortunately I'm not able to share. I wanted to share the slides, but I can share this after if it will be possible with the participants. Obviously it will be available for all of you, but let's start from the needed preconditions that we have to take in mind when we would like to try to develop such a methodology. First of all, there is the element of knowledge. It means, first of all, to know the context where you are going to the context you choose for your activity, and its local dynamics. And obviously it means not just physical dynamics, but social dynamics. What kind of specific elements are characterizing the environment that you choose for your activity. So this is why it's really crucial to have capacity in having good relationships with the context. And it means to have a contact person that is usually present in this environment that you choose for your activity, and that knows what kind of dynamics are going on in the context. It can be a condominium, it can be a park, it can be a parking area, not just the green park, but also parking area, any kind of space that we really can have around. But another element of the knowledge is, let's say, important, because it's the part that concerns the tools. We have some very important tools around the world concerning the promotion of physical activity and the need to fight sedentary, with all the elements that already Francesca reminds you during her speech, considering that this is a very dramatic element of our societies, and this is why it is the cause of high level of mortality. So, but this is, let's say, the part that is affecting health itself. But we are considering health in a global approach. So we mean physical, but also psychological and also social dimension of health. So the other element that is linked to this capacity of knowledge and capacity of use of the use of tools is something crucial for advocacy. And this is another crucial, let's say, critical word that we have to have in mind, because any activity we will be able to develop after this capacity building, or in general, probably many of your associations already develop this kind of activities, but this is very important to try to maintain the connection between what we are doing in a specific area, in a specific context, in a specific local space, with what is the advocacy of the association we represent, and which is usually an association that has the promotion of physical activity as something very important, as aim and mission, let's say. So this is why we have, sometimes it is not considered enough, and we think it should be much more, the importance of some papers we can count on. And these are, for example, the Global Action Plan of on Physical Activity, produced by the WHO, that is the World Organization for Health, and that was approved in 2018. And it's quite an important action plan that we can consider as a point of reference at international level. But this action plan also represents a point of reference at a national level, because, for example, in our country, what we do as WISP is to try to advocate and obviously try to influence the national health prevention plans. And this is actually what we are involved in. And we know that your associations are doing the same in their countries. But we have to take in mind always that these are important things to consider when we approach local institutions. And this is why the third word I will use, that is very crucial, is relationships. Relationships, it means that this is a really basic precondition for the development of this activity and this kind of methodology, because the relationships are the base on which we can be able to develop such a methodology. What it means? It means establishing, it means that we have to be able to establish collaboration with other subjects present in the area, for example, institutions like public administration, municipalities, district committees, local health structures, this kind of institutions at local level. I suppose you can imagine your specific context, but if we think about Italian context, we know that we have, for example, a part of the municipality. We have also district committees that are managing the administration of the territory at a more local level. And then we have, of course, to take in mind what is the health structure as a referent point for the National Ministry for Health. So what is the structure that is more near to the citizen when we need to approach health system? So the relationship in the capacity to consider and build this relationship with the local authorities and local institutions. This is something that is really crucial to start such a methodology. So it will be very important also when you will try to invent your pilot test, is to consider which institutions you have around you. And can be involved. The other subject that is needed for to be able to create such a methodology is to involve other civil society organizations. It means that in the territory that you will choose in order to create this methodology, pilot test, there are obviously other social civil society organizations that knows, for example, that are involved in the, for example, in the protection of the environment or taking care of the territory since many points of view. But not only thinking about the so-called green spaces, but also all the possible common spaces that we can take care of them, and promoting, for example, cultural enhancement, presence in the territory, and in order to create and facilitate a deeper or greater sense of citizenship and participation by people. And this actually will be something that Michele Di Gioia will talk about later, and will give also an example, an idea of what is it, showing a very short video that is illustrating how this is developed, for example, in another city that we are not going into too much today, but it's the city of Matera. And he will illustrate what kind of proximity activity they developed there, and giving the sense of the what I tell you before, that it means not just thinking about the health of people in physical terms, but also social and cultural and psychological dimension. The other element that is very important in this keyword that I mentioned, relationship, is the promotion of knowledge and skills, and simply human relationships somehow. Because if we think, for example, during the pandemic crisis, what happens with the restrictions that we had to face, all of us, some of us in a full lockdown, some of us with some restrictions, but in general, many of us, unfortunately, are all around Europe and in the world, we had to face this isolation and physical restriction in our very small spaces. And so this is something that affected in particular elderly people. And so they face and experience a strong physical, psychological, and social isolation. And the relationship that you can build in creating such activities and such a methodology at local level, at the neighborhood level, is giving the chance to develop this social and human dimension of relationships. And for example, thanks for these proximity activities that we develop in, we were already involved in, developed in the cities I mentioned before. These activities and these relationships gives the opportunity to create, let's say, to break the isolation, the loneliness of these elderly people that have been really isolated, physically isolated in their homes, because they were invited not to go out from their houses. And so this was also an occasion to help them by, for example, just to bring them the food, or going to the pharmacy to buy them the needed medicaments, or just to go to the post office or whatever. In any case, it was a human contact, and this was really, really important. And let's say that this methodology, unfortunately, I have to underline, unfortunately became something really crucial in this phase of the pandemic. And this is probably something that make more understandable what is the social dimension of this activity we are going to propose. But about this COVID implications, we will talk about and deeply in the session where will be also Daniela Conti, who is the responsible for interculturality policies in WISP. But coming directly in mentioning the cities we are talking about, let's start from Reggio Emilia. I cannot enter in very detail, but we will have, and this is important to tell now, we will have our operators, the point of reference in these cities, Reggio Emilia, Sassari, and Florence. They will be with us in the end of this session, so they will be also able to answer to some of the questions that I ask you to to share with us, because it will be probably more interesting to hear from their voice this kind of details, because I'm just illustrating the key elements of the activities they developed, but just to facilitate this work, because we have to do all this in English, and so they will answer to questions and we will translate from Italian to English and vice versa. WISP Reggio Emilia have been developing an activity that is called Ginnastica Condominiale. Obviously, all the things I'm telling now, you will have after the capacity building in paper, so you can have a look, you can enter in details in the slides and documents that we will share in English. The local committee of WISP has a strong and consolidated relationship with the local institutions. The institutions I mentioned already before, it means the local administration, municipality, health system, etc. And they developed this activity, proposing to bring, as we said before, people, not people to the gyms, but bringing physical activity in their condominium, in their comfortable, accessible environment, known and protected, with all the elements that are needed, of course. And Francesca will enter also in this some very detailed elements that are needed to develop this kind of activity, because we need to have enough space, but also a proper space that is, let's say, adapt to the needs we have to practice some physical activity. This activity have been developed for 2-3 times per week, times a week, with of course some days of a day of stop. And but also it has been developed in particular with the elderly people, but not only. It means to involve also people who are weak for other reasons, and with the fragilities and a lot of other, for example, pathologies that they suffer for. But before starting this activity, the WISP was involved in a specific training phase that was aiming to educate, let's say between commas, but to educate an educator, a technical educator that is moving together with the coordinator of the activities in the town, with the WISP committee, in order to plan the activities, to consider all the elements that are needed to be able to be effective. And actually, to be effective, just I would like to return a little bit to the preconditions. It is, we already said somehow, but it's always important to underline, it's crucial that there is always a kind of intersectoral, transversal capacity to create activities, where not just you and your association, but possibly also other subjects that are present in the territory can be involved. Just for you, an example, and I can go forward to just a moment I would like to move straight to Florence, and this is would give because these are really common elements between the different cities. For example, when you develop an activity in Florence in particular, they are always involving also a professional, for example, a doctor, or a psychologist, or an expert on environmental protection, or something like this. And this is why it is important to use these physical activity occasions for the social dimension and the knowledge of our territory, because it's our body is in the space and is living in contact with our neighborhood and our space in the neighborhood. And this means that we have to consider all the social, human, and cultural and health elements that is bringing with it. Now the element I will just describe briefly in Florence that characterize the activity there is it's in particular, if we have to say a difference between the Florence and Reggio Emilia, Reggio Emilia is developing the activity in condominiums and common spaces between the homes and the buildings. Florence is developing another kind of things that is always also concerning the surroundings, obviously, and the neighborhoods, but it's specifically walks. It's they are called passeggiate in salute nei quartieri di Firenze. It means healthy walks in Florence neighborhoods. And this activity is developed by WISP committee in collaboration with the Florence municipality and districts, because the city is divided in several districts, and this activity and these walks are developed in all the districts of Florence. So there is a partnership between the municipality and the civic organizations that are and sport clubs, and in this specific case we are talking about WISP. The activities are promoted in collaboration with all the all the other social civil society organizations that are can be involved in the specific neighborhood. These activities are developed, have been developed during, after, and before, of course, the pandemic crisis, and was simply proposing people to know that at a specific time, in a specific day, there is the chance to meet, maintaining the proper distance that is we need to respect in this phase of the pandemic, but before, of course, wasn't this kind of situation, but to meet and then walk together at a very open dimension. It means that it was kind of walks that are open to any participant. I mean, this is not, it is not needed that you are a member of our association to be part of these activities. You just inform, and this is an issue on which also Francesca will talk later, how to communicate these activities. But after this communication, you can involve people, and people just have a walk before in the surroundings, in the specific neighborhoods. But then it is also going, let's say, growing during the months. Just to give you an idea, since now until September or October, I don't remember exactly now, but my colleagues from Florence told that they are planning about 40 activities, 40 walks. It means, and they are people just have to register, because unfortunately, due to the COVID implications, we need now to be registered before you just give an appointment and people just come and join the group and walks. But now what we are obliged to do is to have an established number of people, established number of groups that cannot be too much, approximate between them, but too much near between each other, but they need to be in a specific distance and respecting all the rules of indicated for the social distance due to the COVID situation. But now, so this is this kind of activities are really growing, and what kind of facilities, let's say facilities in this case, are used. In Reggio Emilia, as we said, it is about condominiums and common spaces between the buildings. In Florence, as we said, is urban or rural areas around the neighborhood that can be different depending from the part of the town. Street or routes in the public space, such as green spaces, but also parks and routes along the river. As you know, there is a river in Florence, it's Arno River, as well as other routes that are outside the city in case people wants to have a longer route and longer and heavier somehow physical activity, and this is depending also from the quantity of kilometers that people is able to walk. But this to give to try to connect what I tell you about Florence and Reggio Emilia until now, it is all connected to the action that the precondition I mentioned in the beginning, considering the preconditions. It means that all this was possible because of the advocacy action that WISP committee from Florence have been developing toward Florence municipality and Tuscany region that is managing the health system at the regional level. So to tackle sedentary lifestyles. So it's a long story of advocacy action. As I said before, the committee, the local committee is convinced that nothing can be effective if there isn't a transversal and action that is involving different stakeholders, so each one with different rules and roles and competences and capacities. And this is very important to be able to recognize that each one can give a specific contribution. So in order to involve more people, for example, in Florence, have been signed a formal agreement between, it has been proposed by the local committee, WISP local committee, and then signed with the local authorities. It means region and municipality, and the specific 5 districts of the town. So it has been signed a formal agreement. And this was really important because it's established that all the activities that are promoted by WISP are somehow like representing what is the meaning and the mission also of the local authorities that wants to tackle sedentary lifestyles and wants to link what is the work done at local level, connecting it to the National Health Prevention Action Plan, as I mentioned before, that is linked to the Global Action Plan. Francesca, just tell me if I am already talking too much, how many minutes I have.
I think just
I can hear you.
a minute more, and then
okay. Just but I. So this kind of protocols and agreements are really important to be considered, and this is why I underline this for you. Just thinking about this in the end of the day, when we will have you have to invent the test. Consider also the possibility to which kind of local administration or institution or health system or any kind of agency you think can be involved. You can reach and you can establish a partnership in order to promote this kind of effective activities. But because the question is that if we just think about a very short-term planification, it means that we can realize a very nice idea, very nice activity, but this will born and this will die at the end of the activity. If we instead do another thing, that we create a process where all these stakeholders can be involved and activate, not just involved, but activated. If they can be activated, this means that this will create a process that will be much more effective and will be much more sustainable for the future, and maybe will create activities that will be able to go on after this start. And just as a conclusion, I'm very sorry if I cannot talk too much about Sassari, but this is also a very specific case, different from Reggio Emilia and Florence, of course. But for example, for them have been very important to work specifically with women. But in general, they for example, try to promote physical activity in collaboration with Save the Children, that is at the base of a project that is at national level called Punto Luce. They have like some specific spaces where people, and specifically women in this case, can join and have experiences in different kind of social aspects. Physical activities is something that is at the beginning of this activity, but it implicates a lot of other elements. But just to tell you that, for example, in their case, they were trying to promote something that can be useful for people to come out from their isolation, isolation that wasn't caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. It was also before, due to many reasons. This was an activity, is an activity that is very effective, considering that it gives the chance to people very easily to know that at a specific time, in a specific place, they can meet, obviously with the same characteristics I told you before concerning the COVID restrictions today. So they have to register before, just via WhatsApp or via different systems with the point of reference who is inviting them to come, just to know how many people will be there, how many groups have to be able to be managed by the coordinators. Just the last element I would like to tell, and this is the implication of the COVID-19. I told you before about the, let's say, the positive elements of this methodology, considering the impact of the pandemic crisis. And this kind of activities can be able to find a solution for people to be active, even considering the restrictions and the impossibility to go, for example, in a playground or in a swimming pool or whatever, but to practice physical activity in the neighborhoods. But something that has been as an effect of all this is that we have to consider that, unfortunately, number of operators, for example, that we need to develop an activity. In the case of Florence, for example, they have a walking group. If they had, for example, 100 people that register to be that wants to participate in the walks tomorrow, they need to be split in different groups, and it means that all of them have to have another operator. That it means that if you had before one operator, now you need 4 operators to manage the situation. And because we believe very much in the fact that activities cannot be just developed as something very nice and funny and for everybody, but has to be also somehow guided and developed by people that knows it has a specific skill and a specific capacity to develop this kind of activities. So knows that people cannot walk too much and too hard and too speed, for example. They need to walk in a proportion of time and dimension of time that is needed to maintain healthy lifestyles.
everybody, and thank you for the introduction and the presentation of Raffaella, and I'm very glad to be here and take part in this meeting. In a few minutes, I will try to explain you two experiences developed by WISP across the Italian territory and the Basilicata region during a particular year, 2019, where Matera, the city where I live, was European Capital of Culture. So we tried to develop a process with a connection between between culture and sports. So how can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Do you need your
Thank you.
presentation,
Yes.
right?
Thank you. Thank you. I need. Okay, but a few minutes, really a few minutes, and I try to explain everything. I think it could be interesting for you. So, how can neighborhood physical activity facilitate citizenship and participation? So it's a good question, and so I try starting the connection between sport as a common language and try to facilitate this relationship and to create the right participation through citizen and the local community. Because what we try to do with WISP, with two projects, a national project so-called Open Space and a regional project so-called Open Playful Space, was the connection between physical activity and sports and active citizenship and participation. So if you can go on with the second slide, okay. Open Space project was a good practice of social and urban resilience developed by WISP in 2017 and 2018, and aimed to develop and spread a common methodology to facilitate social reintegration of vulnerable and disadvantaged young people. So the specific target were young people, not in employment, education, and training. So it was developed in 11 Italian cities across all the national territory, and 11 cities were involved. And the topic was that street sports gave their contribution in tackling marginalization of Italian young people. So through physical activity and street sports like skating, like parkour, like other non-structured sports, we try to facilitate regeneration process and community management of public spaces. Public spaces that we try to explain like common goods, where everyone have to take care about them, have to use them, and to take part of the local community. So neighborhood and other spaces of the cities like square, like parks, like green areas, like streets too, become part of the local community, and everyone could take care about them. And so the main language to facilitate this process was sports and people that practice sport, like young people that were not involved in any kind of process in the town. Sports organization and local communities, through a combined approach that includes networking, political commitments, and taking responsibilities, built a strategic partnership to contribute to the community development. So, as I previously said, public spaces as common goods. So this is a particular strategy of our association in Italy in this period. We are trying to facilitate this process, and sport could be really a great reason to facilitate this process. Open Playful Space is a project produced with WIS Basilicata, which culminated in the festival Transformation. So, so-called Transformation Action was Actor of Transformation, ended of June during Matera European Capital of Culture. So it was a cultural revolution in sports and street art. In the official program of the European Capital of Culture, sport had a particular role, and sport and urban art merge, energize, and transform public spaces so people can enjoy the city beyond the historic center. During the 2019, where the town were capital of culture, all the attention was focused on the center of the city, the historic part, the Sassi, the historical neighborhood famous in the world, but the other part of the town were abandoned, and citizens were not involved in this process. This was the guiding spirit of Open Playful Space, to reappropriate of the other part of the town, creating the right involvement of the community, of the local community. And so we had an idea that we shared with the organizing committee of the European Capital of Culture to connect sports and art. Sport and urban art, because they were easily to understand and could facilitate the involvement of young people. Often in the European capital programs, young people are not involved in the process that is part of the town. And so this language could be a reason to involve them in our program. This urban regeneration operation used games, sport, and urban art in a new way, by discovering and regenerating spaces for people to experience as accessible cultural places. So we try to give to the city a new vision of public space, and returning them to the whole community by highlighting what is usually invisible. The next one. So a large number of residents were involved in generating a new vision of public spaces and returning them to the whole community by highlighting what is usually invisible. The residents themselves can be the real protagonists of change, starting with the young people capable of regenerating urban spaces and relationship by means of sports and street art. This great social phenomenon starts from the local areas and drives a cultural revolution that improves lifestyles and health, representing an opportunity to which everyone has a right. So this is my presentation. So I want to add a few keywords. The role of local community and the importance of the relationship between a lot of actors: sports organization, schools, municipality, citizens, because they have the power to change really the place they live. And the common language of physical activity and movement and sports can facilitate this approach. The connection between, or better, the contamination between different languages, easily to understand, like sports, again, and culture and urban art, because this could be a new way to facilitate citizen participation. It's very hard in our countries to facilitate participation because often people is not very involved in this process. So we have to try the right way to communicate them and to facilitate through languages this kind of approach. The other important for me word is neighborhood. Neighborhood is really the key. We have to try to have a new relationship and to create the right connection between different generations. And in the small cities, I think it's easily, but all in the big cities, using the public spaces and to involve the citizens in taking care of the places and use and make them beautiful than they are. It's a great change for our society. So thank you for your attention. I stop here. I don't know if you have any question for me. I'm available for your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Michele. I think that if you can just stay a few minutes, we will now read the questions if we already received.
Yeah, we have a question for Michele, and it is, how did you manage to attract people to be part of the movement session?
Microphone. Okay, my microphone. Thank you for the question, first of all. So it's a long process started 2 years before, involving people, meeting people, and trying to create with them the program of our not event, because it's not correct call it event. It's something that it could be really change the cultural way to live the town. And so people need to express their needs. So they didn't like the way they live because the outskirts of the town were abandoned, and the people get to the center of the town. And so we try to talk with them, to meet them, and create together the condition to involve them in this movement. And so physical activity and sports and movement was the first reason they could listen to us and to talk with us. And so I think that we have a great tool to approach the people. That this movement, our common language, as a easy language to involve them. And so, but we need to have time to listen to them. And so we have to meet them, because it's not a process that could be made in 1 month. I think that it was built, and we need to have people that is able to listen to people.
Sorry, Michele, can I ask you something? Just to give a very concrete example on how you approach people. Where did you approach? I mean, you mentioned schools, you mentioned other social places, but just tell an example on how you approach this and you listen people. Where did you listen people?
So in this specific case in Matera, we individuated two particular squares that were in the outskirts of the town. And so with the local community, involving school, involving resident association, a sporting association, and citizens, we try with them to create a meeting every month. Every month we with them discuss about some topics, and with them we started proposing some movement, sports, and other activities, social activities, cultural activities, in which they were the protagonists of this process. And so they built with us the entire program of our intervention in the capital of culture. So they will be really involved in this process, and they are continuing in this process. So we have our new local office in one of the two neighborhoods in which we program our intervention. So it was a
common enrichment for both the association and the community, because right now the involvement of people in the activities allowed the association and the institution involved to grow. For example, the example that Michele was doing is they have their center, the WISP committee, the Territorial Committee has his center in one of the neighborhood they helped to develop. So it's the key word for this kind of activities is a common enrichment. It must be a bilateral sense of belongings for these activities. We can't just bring sport and expect people to passively accept it and do it, but we have to involve them at all stages of the implementation. So yes, of course, we assessed some improvement in the mostly in the social well-being of people, because physical well-being cannot be assessed in a very short time. So we will see it with the years, but in social well-being terms, yes, of course, a lot of improvements. Yes, of course, the improvements are mostly at the social components, and they can be assessed by informal methods. So just seeing people that go together. What we intended to respond to with this project of working groups were two main points. One is the sedentary behaviors, which is one of the points we want to contrast with this project, but the other one is the contrast to isolation and loneliness of people. So we actually think that sometimes the social component is even more important than the physical one at times. It would be really simple, and but for example, we have some people who didn't do any physical activities. They didn't move a step outside their house, that in an organized context are the ones who promote the activity. So this is one of the ways that we saw the improvement at the social well-being level of these people. One of the ways that we assess the success of the project is the fact that the project was established like 10 years ago, probably 10 years ago, around 10 years ago. And the project is mainly endorsed by people themselves. So it's people who invite to join other people. And this means that if a project is endorsed by the people themselves, is a project that is working. Another success of the project is that even after the walking group had taken place, so after the physical activity, people express the desire to have a relationship with each other, and they engaged in other activities other than physical ones. So for example, they met after the walking group to go have a pizza and go eat together at the restaurant. So this is also a great success of the project. So in conclusion, the important component of this kind of project is that it's a methodology which is based on the creation of a net, of a safety net of subjects that are interested in the project. Without a proper net, a proper network of people and organization that wants to be involved in the project may work in the short run, but won't work in the long run. So it's really important, the aspect of the stakeholders and advocacy. So an annotation, there is an anecdote in conclusion, is that some people comes to the working group asking at which speed do I have to walk with, because there are people who are really competitive and wants to get the best time, get the best performance. But what we answer to them, and it is a very wisp answer, such as a motto: you have to walk at a pace that allows you to speak with the person beside you without feeling tired. So this is a really great thing that highlights the importance of relationship more than the physical performance itself. The equipment required for this activity is mostly recycled equipment. It's equipment that can be found in anyone's house. We can use anything from the wand of from a broomstick to elastic that we can buy in any shop, to water bottle to use as dumbbells. Anything can be used for condominium gymnastic. So anything that can be reutilized by people who participate in the activities, so the participant to the condominium gymnastic, that they can reutilize in everyday life and in everyday physical activities. So beside the 2 times per week that the condominium gymnastic is implemented, they can also replicate it in their own home using their own materials.